With Baldur's Gate 3 closing in, I wanted to make a video overview of the classes the game has to offer upon release. Now, I only have early access experience with the game, so I'll have little information on some of the classes outside the realm of Dungeons & Dragons. My intention with this video is to give a brief insight into each of the classes and their archetypes, and maybe some speculation on what to expect when deciding what class best suits your adventuring needs. Don't worry, I'll make detailed class videos upon release. This is going to be a longer one, so grab a drink and let's talk about the classes of Baldur's Gate 3. From the tribesmen of the Uthgardt to the mini-arrow orcish horde, all the way to the dwarven gutbuster brigade, the barbarian is all about getting angry and smashing faces. Their primary class feature is Rage, which offers them fantastic damage and resistances, making the barbarian a great frontline character to lead the charge into battle. Barbarians are capable of going without armor due to their unarmored defense and hold their ground against the mightiest of foes due to their high hit points and damage mitigation resistances. The barbarian is typically a combat character and not very heavy in the skill department, making them a great choice for players who want to solve problems with violence. Barbarian heroes typically rely on high strength or dexterity for close combat and a solid constitution score for extra hit points. Okay, let's take a peek at the archetypes available to the barbarian upon reaching level 3. For some barbarians, rage is just a means to an end, and that end is violence. Heedless of injury and a roar on their lips, the Berserker is a tornado of pissed-off muscle. This is probably the closest archetype to the classic barbarian. When people envision a barbarian, chances are it's the Berserker. This path of rage and violence offers many paths to dealing close combat damage. The greatest lure to this archetype is their mindless rage ability, which offers an additional attack as a bonus action while raging. If you like characters who are here to kick some ass and, well, kick some ass, this is a fantastic choice. The Wildheart. Now, in D&D, this archetype is called the Path of the Totem Warrior. Jeez, what a mouthful. Good call, Larian. These barbarians are more spiritual than their foul-tempered brethren, but not without their own anger issues. Upon choosing this archetype at 3rd level, you are faced with the choice of which spirit animal to follow. Each of the animal spirits offer different situational bonuses to the barbarian's rage ability, from dashing as a bonus action or offering your allies advantage on attack rolls within a certain range of you, to being resistant to all damage except psychic, and to be honest, they're all pretty darn good. If you want a more grounded barbarian who can speak with the animals and has a National Geographic Rage Power suite, the Wildheart is a solid choice. From the Feywilds to the Upper Plains, the Forgotten Realms radiates with supernatural forces that can profoundly influence those susceptible to these wild forces of the realm. Being creatures of intense emotion makes the barbarian very susceptible to this wild arcana. These magic-infused barbarians walk the path of wild magic. Now, I can't say for certain what abilities this barbarian archetype receives, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that they'll be able to harness wild magic while raging. How this will be implemented into Baldur's Gate 3, I'm not 100% sure, but a Raging Wild Mage sounds like a lot of fun to me. My guess is that they're going to be able to Wild Surge similar to the Wild Magic Sorcerer, but instead of a scrawny sorcerer behind all that crazy, will be an even bigger and madder crazy. The Fighter. Strong of arm and the master of martial skill, the Fighter is not your ordinary town guard. Armed with training and almost all weaponry, the Fighter can just as easily be a master archer as they can an unmatched swordsman. This versatility allows the Fighter to be skilled at both ranged and close-quarter combat. The Action Surge ability, which allows the Fighter to take 2 turns in a single round, is one of their trademark abilities, and the use of Second Wind, which heals them mid-fight, allowing the Fighter to stay in the thick of any conflict. With solid hit points and a nose for battle, the Fighter typically relies on having good strength or dexterity for melee or ranged combat, and a good constitution for additional hit points. Okay, let's see what archetypes await the Fighter upon reaching 3rd level. The Battle Master is the ultimate fighter tactician. With the use of superiority dice, which is represented by 8-sided dice, the Battle Master can spend these dice to attempt an array of combat maneuvers. With the ability to trip, disarm, or even intimidate their foes, this subclass is great for players who think tactically in combat and want a hero that is just as good at kicking ass as they are at tactical superiority. The Eldritch Knight is essentially a fighter wizard with diminished spellcasting ability. When swords fail, they are able to cast spells from the wizard's spell list to either bolster their defense or gain an arcane edge in the fight. The Eldritch Knight is a fantastic class for players who want to play a hero that can stand their ground in the face of overwhelming odds, and also tap into arcane spells. They are, in my humble opinion, the most versatile of the fighter's subclasses, able to wield almost every weapon from range to melee, and if that's not getting the job done, Arcane Fire is an option. The champion is the consummate warrior. They train tirelessly in the art of combat so that dealing critical damage is second nature. Armed with a lower crit chance and remarkable athletic ability, the champion relies on passive bonuses to get them through an encounter. This subclass is great for players looking for a plug-and-play fighter. A no-muss, no-fuss, I'm here to beat up bad guys without having to decide if they need to spend superiority dice or what spell to cast. This more relaxed approach to combat also comes with the perk of less downtime. No need to rest for spells or combat maneuvers when your abilities are passive. The Rogue, my personal favorite class in Dungeons & Dragons, the Rogue is the master of stealth and misdirection. Armed with 2 fistfuls of skills and the ability to deal massive damage via sneak attack. The Rogue is great from both damage-loving players and people who prefer the stealthy approach. Their primary ability score is Dexterity, allowing them to master light and finesse weapons, making them also a primary choice for a party archer. Although they lack the ranged weaponry of the fighter, they make up for it with the single target damage they can deal with just a dagger or a short bow. Skilled at finding and disposing of traps and secrets, the Rogue is a fantastic addition to any party. Let's check out what subclasses are available to the Rogue at 3rd level. The Arcane Trickster is basically a rogue wizard. Armed with an assortment of enchantments and charms, this adds support to an already powerful damage dealer, able to utilize the Mage Hand spell to pick locks and pockets from range. Although this was not implemented in early access, my fingers are crossed. With an assortment of spells at their disposal, the Arcane Trickster is an amazing subclass for players looking for a stealthy and reliable spellcaster. The Assassin. Now, we currently don't have any information on the Assassin, and I'm praying that Larian does it justice. This subclass is good at killing. In Dungeons & Dragons, whenever they succeed on an attack against an unaware or surprised foe, they automatically crit. They're skilled at poison use and they're expert infiltrators. This archetype is for the edgy boys, looking to clear a room of baddies without ever being seen. If that's you, the Assassin will show you the way. The Thief is my personal favorite subclass of the Rogue, due to their fast hand feature, which allows a second bonus action on your turn that can be used in a variety of ways. They also gain second story work, which makes them resistant to fall damage, so superhero landings are a dream that can happen. At later levels, they become very adept at stealth, making them that much harder to locate. This subclass is probably the closest to what a traditional rogue class can perform. They offer a great range of both skill and combat versatility, making them a fine choice for players who want to rob the Sword Coast blind. Coming in a very close second place for my favorite class in Dungeons & Dragons has to be the Bard. The face of the party, the Bard relies on high charisma to wheel and deal their way out of most, if not all, situations. This charisma affords them many support abilities in the form of bardic music and magic. Arguably the most skilled and knowledgeable of any hero, armed with high skills, both healing and support magic, and the ability to hold their own in a combat situation. The Bard's ability to fit any role in a party makes them an easy choice for players looking to have a fantastically well-rounded hero. Let's take a look at the subclasses for the Bard. Bards from the College of Lore tend to know something about everything. Does anybody else have a friend like that? I do. It's inspiring and a little annoying on occasion. These bards dedicate their lives to collecting bits of obscure lore from any source that they consider credible. This thirst for knowledge offers skill proficiency in Arcana, Intimidation, and Sleight of Hand upon taking the subclass, meaning that the bard is going to get the lore they seek one way or another, even if they have to cut their foe with words. Bards of Valor are the skalds and dreamers of the bards, living to experience and tell the tales of great heroes before and carve a legend of their own. Through both song and deed, this love affair with adventure offers them proficiency in medium armor and martial weapons, allowing them to get into the thick of any conflict. Their ability to inspire their allies in combat and increase their fighting prowess makes them an ideal subclass for heroes that enjoy both combat and a support role. A dervish and a student of both dance and blade, the sword bard are a sculptor of art and beauty. Their masterpiece is the rhythmic dance of combat, their instrument a gleaming blade. The Sword Bard is just a cool freaking subclass. Armed with medium armor proficiency and the use of a scimitar, the Bards of the College of Swords gain access to fighting styles and the Blade Flourish ability, allowing the Bard to deal additional damage in combat, increase their armor class, or slash more than one foe at a time, making them a great choice for players who want to be the face of the party, and if diplomacy fails, dance on their enemy's grave. The Warlock can be defined by their pact with another worldly being. This relationship can be similar to that of a cleric and their deity, though this is not always the case. Some Warlocks are cult leaders and fanatic servants, enslaved and beholden to a creature of terrible power, and that power demands service. More often than not, this connection to their patron is closer akin to master and apprentice.
One to embody the power of the dark side and one to crave it.
With this connection comes power, guile, and otherworldly boons known as invocations. These are extraordinary abilities that range from speaking with beasts, seeing in magical darkness, or becoming invisible. The Warlock relies on charisma to fuel their eldritch magic and breaks the mold of typical spell casting, allowing them to regain spells with a short rest. This is a great class for players who love dealing magical damage, enjoy being the spokesman of the party, and are in love with the idea of a more anti-hero-esque character. Unlike most classes, the Warlock chooses their subclass during character creation. Let's take a peek. The Archfey Warlocks are tied to a creature long forgotten by mortal men, who was a once and mighty Fey. Whimsical and lofty, this Fey may desire power or be out to settle an old grudge. For their loyalty, the Archfey offers Fey presence, allowing the Warlock to charm or frighten foes or would-be allies, and the ability to whisk away in a misty step, teleporting the Warlock away from harm or close enough to strike. This is a great subclass for players who enjoy the aspects of the Warlock and want to lean into their charismatic dominance. Warlocks who align themselves with the Fiend are offered the Dark One's blessing, allowing them to heal from any creature they have slain. This Dark One usually has designs of evil, and chances are that you are just a pawn in this scheme. But you are no ordinary pawn. The Fiend Warlock specializes in taking lives with eldritch magic, and this is an arcane force to rival either the Wizard or Sorcerer. If you are a player who likes to kill with magic and don't want to fuss over spell slots and resting often, the Fiend is a sure hellfire way to victory. The Great Old One is a creature of myth, an estranged being of the weird and fantastical. This Lovecraftian nightmare offers the powers of entropy and twists the minds of its enemies. Warlocks that are beholden to such creatures gain Mortal Reminder, which upon landing a critical hit causes all nearby enemies to become taken by fear. If you are a player who is misunderstood and a little emo and likes weird shit and throwing around dark magic, hey man, don't get mad, we just don't understand your fucking build, okay? I'm sure it's cool. Divine magic, as the name suggests, is the power of the gods, flowing from them into the Forgotten Realms. Clerics are the conduit to this divine force, manifesting holy magic and miracles. The cleric is both healer and divine warrior. Unlike wizards or sorcerers, clerics have access to the entire spell array of their divine calling, able to choose their spells each day with renewed vigor. A cleric's primary ability score is wisdom, which allows them to harness their divine magic to both heal their allies or smite their foes. Armed with the ability to channel divinity, which alters based on their chosen domain, this allows the cleric a variety of ways to deal with conflict. The cleric is a great class for players who like to fill the healer role or support roles, but also capable of taking the front line beside their heavy-handed companions. Casting an assortment of buffs and damage-dealing spells, the cleric is a force of divinity and versatility. Similar to the warlocks, the cleric chooses their domain or subclass upon character creation. Due to the number of domains, I'm going to be brief for simplicity's sake, and the fact that a lot of these domains are not in early access, so I could be wrong on some of their abilities, but I'll cover them all in depth upon release. Clerics of knowledge gain access to additional languages and eventually the ability to read thoughts and use any skill or tool. These clerics are usually also wizards or bards to add insult to injury to their already vast knowledge. Life clerics are specialized in the healing arts and capable of wearing heavy armor, making them ideal for frontline support healers. They boast empowered healing, which allows them to heal additional hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level. This is a primary choice for players who want to heal their way to victory. Clerics of Light gain access to fire magic on top of their already powerful spell suite, and Warding Flare, which shields them in Divine Light and imposes disadvantage against their attacker. I'm gonna be honest here, I never gave this subclass a second glance until my buddy and I duoed a playthrough of Early Access, and he was a Light Cleric, and it was like turning the difficulty to story mode. These guys are awesome. Nature Clerics boast the ability to charm plants and animals and gain access to Druid cantrips. I don't have a wealth of information on them, but it seems like a solid choice for a multi-class ranger or druid. Clerics of the Tempest have command over thunder and lightning. They're proficient with martial weapons and heavy armor, at least they are in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and have the ability to use their channel divinity when rolling thunder or lightning damage to deal maximum damage instead. Can you say Thor cosplay? I mean, hell yeah, brother. The Trickery domain is good at leading players on and playing hard to get. She will mislead you, and her feelings have a bonus on stealth checks. She has advantage to hurt your feelings and turn you down. On the eve of victory, even over the goblins. If you're a player who thinks that toying with people's emotions sounds like fun, you're a real piece of shit.
At least you made the effort.
And finally, the War domain. They receive combat bonuses in the form of the War Priest ability. This allows them to perform an additional attack as a bonus action times per day equal to their Wisdom modifier, and their channel divinity grants them a hefty bonus to hit their enemies. These guys make for excellent frontline tanks if your party happens to be lacking one. The Druid is the ultimate force of nature, able to channel the forces of the elements and in possession of a mastery over wild shaping, which allows them to transform into beasts of the Forgotten Realms. Druids rely on Wisdom as their spellcasting ability, which, the same as Clerics, offers access to the entire spell array from which the Druid can choose their spells each day. Capable of wearing medium armor and with a very specific weapon proficiency list, the Druid offers the powers of the elements and the versatility of becoming an animal. Players who have a love of nature and are guardians of the balance will find the Druid an easy fit for their hero. The Druid has 3 subclasses to choose from upon gaining 2nd level. Land Druids lean into the spellcasting of the Druid, capable of replenishing expended spell slots with natural recovery, and typically take on a more support or healing role within a party. They gain access to spell circles, which are tied to a type of terrain, and with these circles comes additional spells typically not available to the Druid, such as Mirror Image, Blur, Invisibility, and Acid Arrow. This allows the Druid of the land to provide spell support, damage, and healing to their group, making them an excellent choice for players who want to fill the role of a healer, but still like prancing around town as a cat. Moon Druids typically prefer their animal form to that of their birth form. They are the shapeshifters of the Druids and use their mastery over wild shaping to rip into their enemies with tooth and claw. This comes in the form of Combat Wild Shape, which allows the Druid to transform into a beast as a bonus action and offers the form of a bear to stand strong at the forefront of any conflict. Alongside this bestial form, the Druids of the Moon have Lunar Mend, which allows them to expend spell slots while in animal form to heal, making them fantastic tanks. Players who enjoy getting big and fuzzy and tackling problems as a bear will not be disappointed. This subclass isn't available during early access, but let me take a few shots in the dark and see if I'm close. The Spore Druids typically find beauty in decay. They're usually druids from the Underdark or swampy locations that have an affinity for fungal spores, and with them, they're capable of turning invisible and animating the dead. I'm not going to get too in-depth because I'm not sure how Larian is implementing their fungal fanaticism, but I'll be sure to cover them upon release. For now, they look like a solid choice for an evil druid or quasi-necromancer build. We'll leave it at that. If the druid is the master of the wild and the barbarian its primal fury, then the ranger is its guardian. A silent protector and hunter of the realms, the ranger is skilled at both ranged and close combat, boasting an array of skills and combat efficiency, making the ranger an independent and self-sufficient adventurer. Armed with martial weapons, medium armor, and access to their own spell list, the ranger is a match for any problem at any range. Their primary ability comes in the form of Favored Enemy, which offers the ranger an assortment of options on how the player wants to specialize their silent hunter. From additional skill proficiencies, the True Strike cantrip, which offers advantage to hit, to lessons in history and the use of heavy armor. The ranger is a fantastic warrior scout for any adventuring group. At level 3, the ranger has access to the following subclasses: The hunter is the bulwark between civilization and the terrors of the wilderness. Walking the hunter's path offers specialized techniques to deal with the threats of the wild, offering the player a choice between dealing additional damage to an already wounded enemy, attacking 2 enemies with 1 attack, or specializing in fighting larger foes. Regardless of the choice, the hunter is a great asset to any party, capable of maintaining a frontline position or sniping their enemies at ranged. For players looking to play a more specialized fighter with a wider array of skills, the Hunter Ranger is a solid choice. The Beastmaster embodies a friendship between the civilized races and the beasts of the wild. This bond comes in the form of a summoned animal companion, which allows the ranger to summon a bear, boar, giant spider, raven, or wolf companion to aid them both in and out of combat. As the Beastmaster grows in strength, so too does their summoned companion, eventually adding the ranger's proficiency bonus to the armor class of their animal friend. This subclass is great for adding an additional friend to the party, allowing both the ranger and their animal companion to support and protect their allies. For players who like to flank with a furry friend or wasn't allowed to have a dog growing up, this class will fill that hole your parents left in your heart as a child. The Gloom Stalker is another non-early access class, but man, they are cool in Dungeons & Dragons. They gain Dread Ambusher, which increases their movement speed for the first round of combat, allows them to add their wisdom to initiative, and if they attack during a round where this ability is active, they gain an additional attack as part of that action. And if the secondary attack hits, the target takes extra weapon damage. They gain increased dark vision and eventually wisdom as a saving throw. Okay, I'm gonna stop there because I could be wrong on how Larian implements this class, but I will definitely be playing one of these guys. This subclass just screams Ranger Assassin. Okay, let's move on. Magic is a part of every sorcerer, suffusing body, mind, and spirit with the latent power that awaits to be unleashed. Some sorcerers wield magic of ancient Draconic bloodlines, others carry a raw and chaotic magic that springs forth in times of need. With no need for spell books and tomes of arcane learning, the sorcerer is able to tap into their arcane bloodline and produce similar effects to that of a wizard. Charisma is the primary ability score for sorcerers, and with it comes all the benefits granted to a charming and cunning hero. A sorcerer's build is heavily dependent on their bloodline. Some bloodlines are capable of stepping away from the traditional backline arcane damage dealer role and step into the fray alongside their blade-wielding counterparts. For players who enjoy a deep reservoir of magic with some side effects of the arcane bloodline, the sorcerer is both a great combat spellcaster and capable of becoming the face of any adventuring group. Upon character creation, a sorcerer chooses their bloodline origin, which acts as a subclass for the sorcerer. Wild magic is raw and unstable, sometimes bursting from a wild bloodline sorcerer to devastating or sometimes hilarious effects. But sometimes the sorcerer can turn this wild magic to their advantage. Tides of Chaos allows the sorcerer to gain advantage on their next attack roll, but increases the chance of a wild magic event the next time they cast a spell of first level or higher. Wild magic events can come in a variety of ways, summoning a mephit who is hostile to everyone, switching positions with their target each time they cast a cantrip, or set fire to everyone around the sorcerer for 5 turns. This bloodline origin is not for the faint of heart, but if you revel in chaos and want to make your friends suffer in multiplayer, the wild magic sorcerer may be for you. Draconic bloodline sorcerers have an ancestry with the dragons that manifests as they grow in power. Gaining additional hit points and an increased armor class for their scaly skin are only 2 of the perks offered to these draconic spellcasters. The dragon's color also plays a role. If you are a fan of dragons and magic, this is a surefire way to hit 2 kobolds with 1 stone. Storm sorcery is another non-early access subclass, but let's take a crack at it, shall we? Tempestuous magic allows these sorcerers to summon a gale of wind around them briefly. During this time, if the sorcerer casts a spell of first level or higher, they are allowed to fly up to 10 feet without provoking an attack of opportunity. They also gain resistance to both thunder and lightning damage. Now, other than taking a peek at some D&D books, I have no experience with this sorcerer origin, so make of it what you will, but a spellcaster that can fly around the battlefield as a bonus action sounds like a recipe for a pretty tactical magic user. I want to preface this class by saying that the monk and its subclasses did not make it into early access. I am, however, familiar with the class in Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and if Larian did them justice, which I believe they will, they won't be far off what's within the player's handbook. That being said, Monks are students of a mystical arcana known as Ki. They're able to tap into this monistic arcana to hone their already powerful frames into living weapons. Skilled in unarmored defense and a student of martial arts, the monk is a very capable frontline hero and damage dealer. Their use of Ki allows them to perform impossible physical feats of speed and agility, such as delivering a flurry of blows, which offers 2 additional unarmed attacks. Upon reaching 3rd level, the monk is able to choose between 3 monistic traditions. The Way of the Open Hand allows monks to perform various combat maneuvers whenever they strike a foe granted by one of their extra attacks from Flurry of Blows. They are able to impose an additional effect such as knocking their target prone or denying them the ability to take reactions. Later on, they are also capable of healing their wounds equal to 3 times their monk level. If you like black and white ninja movies and Bruce Lee noises, this subclass is a fantastic choice. Monks of the Way of Shadow follow a tradition that values stealth and subterfuge. These monks might be called ninjas or shadow dancers, and they can serve as spies and assassins. Armed with shadowy arts, they are capable of harnessing their Ki to duplicate spells of darkness and silence. These monks are fantastic scouts and great for taking enemies by surprise due to their Shadow Step ability, which allows them a short-range teleport through the shadows up to 60 feet. This subclass has Ninja Assassin written all over it. Period. Monks of the 4 elements use their Ki to produce elemental spell effects at certain levels. They gain more of these elemental attunements at level 6 and 11, and they vary based on choice. Fangs of the Fire Snake allows the monk to spend their Ki upon attacking to produce tendrils of flame from their fist. This increases their reach by 10 feet and allows their unarmed attacks to count as fire damage. By spending more Ki, they can increase the damage they deal by an additional 1d10 fire damage. If you are a fan of martial arts and moves like Fist of Unbroken Air or Rush of the Gale Spirits gives you goosebumps, or maybe you just want to cosplay as the last airbender, the Way of the 4 Elements monk is the way to go. O holy knight of truth and justice, a bulwark against evil and the sword of smiting goodness. Armed with righteous fervor and divine spells, the Paladin is a powerhouse of close combat efficiency. Proficient in heavy armor and martial weapons, the Paladin can stand face to face with any evil. Their abilities to buff themselves and protect their squishier allies makes the Paladin an ideal candidate for the frontline hero. If you like the idea of playing the good boy or maybe the trials of a fallen Paladin, this class will smite the competition. Upon character creation, you are forced to choose which subclass of Paladin you want to pursue. Paladins who choose the Oath of the Ancients are sworn protectors in the cosmic struggle against darkness, and preserve the sanctity of life, beauty, and nature. Armed with Healing Radiance, which pulses energies in a 3-meter radius around the Paladin, and Divine Smite, these Paladins sworn to the Ancients can wade into battle without fear, healing themselves and their allies as they waylay any evil that stands in their way. This is a great tank subclass. I played it when it first hit early access, and the Ancients Paladin is a hard target to get rid of. Those who swear an oath to devotion are similar to a knight in shining armor, acting with honor and virtue to protect the weak in pursuit of the greater good. They gain Holy Rebuke, which surrounds an ally in a vengeful aura that deals radiant damage to any who strike them. Paired with their smite spells, the Oath of Devotion Paladin is the ideal classic Paladin hero. Paladins who hold justice in their highest regard and seek absolution upon the wicked swear an oath to vengeance. Not an early access subclass, the Vengeance Paladin is another guessing game, but I can offer what they receive in Dungeons & Dragons. The Vengeance Paladin is capable of channeling divinity, and with this divinity comes 2 options. Abjure Enemy allows the Paladin to frighten their enemy, making them unable to move until they take damage. The other use of this channel allows the Vow of Enmity. Cast as a bonus action, the Paladin gains advantage on attack rolls against their target for up to a minute. I am Vengeance. I am the Knight. I am Batman. Okay, we can move on. The Oathbreaker is a special case Paladin subclass that requires that you have broken your tenets as your primary Paladin subclass, at which point you can choose to seek atonement or follow the path of the Oathbreaker. Casting aside your oath leaves only darkness and ambition for power in its wake. For embracing this path, the Oathbreaker gains the ability to steep their foe in darkness that now churns within them, dealing necrotic damage to their foe for 3 turns. the power to control the undead, and unleash their dreadful aspects, frightening all foes within a 9-meter radius. This is as close as we are going to get to an anti-paladin, and if being bad feels good, this may be for you. Wizards are the students of the weave, masters of the arcane, and typically the smartest person in any room they enter. Intelligence is their primary ability score, which fuels their arcane artillery. Wizards are a staple class of Dungeons & Dragons and typically fill the role of crowd controller, damage dealer, and party buffer. They tend to be on the softer side of the hit points coin, but their sheer power and versatility in magic easily makes up for this weakness. Wizards choose a subclass at second level, and Larian has come through with every arcane school for release, but only the Abjurer and the Evoker are in early access. So although I'll be able to cover them all briefly, I can only speculate based on my experience with D&D on the remaining. The Abjurer is a student of protective wards and a mastery over shielding magic. This comes in the form of Arcane Ward, which upon casting an abjuration spell of first level or higher, you can use a strand of the spell's magic to create a magical ward that absorbs 3 hit points. When the ward is destroyed, the magic remains, and anytime you cast another abjuration spell of first level or higher, the ward regains hit points equal to twice the level of the abjuration spell cast. This wizard school is a strong party buffer, typically armed with an array of protective spells and buffs. The Evoker is the arcane canon of magic users, skilled at spells of the elements and dealing damage. This practice has allowed them to hurl devastating area of effect spells without fear of hitting their allies. This subclass of wizard is a favorite amongst those who like to fix every problem with Fireball. Got a locked door? Fireball. See 3 goblins ahead? Fireball. The innkeeper doesn't have exact change. You guys get the idea. Conjurers are capable of turning nothing into something, able to summon inanimate objects out of thin air no larger than 3 foot on a side and no more than 10 pounds. Now this may sound pretty dumb at first, but I'm sure if implemented into Baldur's Gate 3 could have some pretty funny uses depending on what all we can summon. A 3-foot 10-pound table that your party barbarian can just throw all over the place could make for a pretty crazy battle. Or a 10-pound pillow to smack your buddy with is going to take a while to get old. I'm curious what Larian's plan for this school of magic will become. At later levels, they gain the ability to short-range teleport up to 30 feet. That is also capable of swapping places with a willing ally, if you want. Diviners gain the Portent ability, which allows them to peek into the future. Whenever they finish a long rest, they roll 2d20s that can be stored for later use, to replace bad rolls, attacks, saving throws, and ability checks made by the diviner or a creature that they can see with one of these foretelling rolls, and can only be used once per turn. I think it would be cool if this also allowed the diviner to decide to replace an enemy's roll, if let's say they rolled bad rolls for the day. Now, this can be done in D&D, but I think it would force this ability to become a reactionary ability in Baldur's Gate 3. Wishful thinking, I suppose. Enchanters focus their spells on twisting and charming the minds of others. Hypnotic Gaze magically enthralls another creature, reducing its movement to 0 and incapacitating it as long as you remain within 5 feet of the target. This is a concentration ability and very cool for crowd controlling an enemy. At later levels, they are able to divert melee attacks at the last second, providing there is another target within range. Necromancers are masters of the dead and a shitty class in Diablo 4. In Dungeons & Dragons, necromancers gain Grim Harvest, which allows them to reap the life of any foe they kill with magic, offers control over undead thralls via Animate Dead, and at later levels becomes resistant to necrotic damage. Want some undead company? This is your guy. The Illusionist. Illusions with skill can kill, but illusionary healing is just a feeling. These masters of misdirection are capable of casting improved illusions, adding both sound and imagery to their minor illusion cantrip. They are also able to change the nature of their illusion and eventually create an illusory double of themselves upon reacting to danger that forces an attacker to miss entirely. This is another subclass that I'm interested to see how these abilities can come into play, or how they function in a video game compared to tabletop D&D. Come on August 3rd. And finally, the Transmuter is a wizard skilled in the art of modifying energy and matter, gaining minor alchemy, which allows them to temporarily alter the physical properties of one non-magical object, changing it from one substance to another. Again, this is a weird ability outside the D&D table, and eventually the Transmuter gains Shape Changer, adding the Polymorph spell to their spellbook and the ability to cast it without using a spell slot. turning them into a beast similar to the Druid's wild shape. I know that some of these are just my speculation based on what Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition offers these subclasses, and I can't wait to check them out upon release to see how Larian handled some of the weirder abilities. I'm excited to take a deeper dive into the classes and subclasses come August 3rd, and I hope you are as pumped to get your hands on this game as I am. But hey, if you're listening to this, you made it to the end of the video, man, and for that, thank you, and have a great day. Goodbye.